Now from Hollywood, romance.
During the first week of Betsy Baker's incumbency as postmistress of Laurel Run, says Bret Hart, the sale of stamps was unprecedented in the annals of the department. Stamps were adopted as local currency and even for decorative purposes on the mirrors and the walls of cabins.
With Virginia Gregg as Betsy, Jack Moyles as Johnny, and Lawrence Dobkin as Stanton, we bring you transcribed Sidney Marshall's adaptation of Bret Hart's short story classic, The Postmistress of Laurel Run.
I don't suppose now that any of you ever heard of Johnny Baker. Johnny Baker was foreman of the last chance mine at Laurel Run. You see, there was 40 people up here, all men. We was Johnny's boys. And he was boss, pal, and even a sort of father confessor to all of us. Anyway, a couple of years ago, Johnny was off to San Francisco on business, and some of us was sitting in the smelter shack when Johnny's best friend, Stanton Green, come in.
Well, looky who's here, boys. Mr. Green. Mike dressed up, ain't he?
That's a fact, he is. Oh, you sure look pretty, Mr. Green.
Yeah. I thank you, gentlemen. I reckon at least one of Johnny's boys ought to be dressed up for the occasion.
Occasion? What's this occasion?
Outside and see for yourselves. Johnny's rig's coming up the grade right now.
Johnny's back?
Yeah.
Well, come on, boys. Let's give him an old hoop and holler.
The old son of a gun. He's coming back so soon.
Sure enough, it's Johnny, all right. But who's that he's bringing? Who is that he's got that?
Well, I'll be...
Well, I'm dreaming. Oh, no, that can't be. Oh, no, I'm dreaming.
I told you it was an occasion, didn't I?
Howdy, boys. Howdy. Well, I see you're a little surprised. I don't rightly blame you. But don't be bashful. Step right up and meet Mrs. John Baker, my new bride.
Hey, your new bride.
Betsy, honey, here's some of the boys I've been telling you about. This here one's Jeff Bronson.
I'm delighted, Mr. Ronson.
And this here's Sim Martin.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Martin.
Gosh.
And here's Bill Handley.
Well, I declare, Mr. Handley, you're every bit as good-looking as Johnny said you was.
I am.
And here's my best friend, Betsy, Stanton Green.
We always figured we was living in God's country, ma'am, and now we know it. We got a angel with us for proof.
Oh, well, I do declare, Mr. Green, that's the nicest speech.
Well, honey, think you can be happy here in Laurel Run?
Why, Johnny, you know I could be happy with you anywhere. But in this beautiful country, with all these handsome men, I'm just going to love it, Johnny.
Well, like Stanton Green said, Miss Baker sure looked like an angel. And being as she was the only woman in Laurel Run, she had a disturbing effect on some of the younger, more foolish gents. And on some of the older ones, too. But she was Johnny Baker's wife, so all concerned kept their distance. All that is but Stanton Green.
Well, I declare, it's Mr. Green.
Yes, ma'am. I hope you don't mind my coming calling this way, Miss Baker.
Mind? Why, it's always a pleasure to have one of Johnny's friends come visiting. Oh, but goodness, just look at my hair. This old rag of a dress.
Why, your hair, ma'am, is like golden clouds. And any princess would be happy to wear that dress if it set her off near as good as it does you.
Oh, goodness. Why, I never heard such nonsense. No, I'd just love to invite you in, but Johnny ain't home.
Yes, ma'am, I know. He asked me to tell you he'd be working late tonight.
Working late again. I declare Johnny worries about that mine like it was a sickly child.
Oh, he takes his work mighty serious, Miss Baker. But it's a shame you got to stay cooped up in this cabin so much. Why, I'd be willing to wager you ain't even seen the sunset from Smoky Hill Point since you've been here.
I know I ain't. Is it a pretty sight, Mr. Green?
Oh, Surpassed only by the one I see standing in the doorway before me, Miss Baker.
Oh, you.
Well, I got me a rig outside. I'd take it as a favor if you'd just allow me the privilege of driving you out there to see you.
Well, I really shouldn't, but just wait till I get my bonnet and cape.
Well, maybe you couldn't blame a lively-spirited young gal for wanting to get away from a lonely cabin once in a while. Anyway, she and Stanton Green was seen together more than once as the weeks went by. And some of the fellows figured the situation was loaded with dynamite. And in a way it was. But not the kind they was talking about. The explosion came one day around noon while Johnny was at his cabin having a bite to eat. And it took place at the mine.
Well, that explosion. One blast. Where was it, boys? What level?
East one, Johnny, the east one.
Who's down there?
Kircher, Green, Melville, maybe 8 or 9 more.
They're blasted in there tight in the tick, Johnny. Can't get through to them nohow.
They're still alive?
We can hear 'em calling, but there ain't no way of getting out.
Here's one way. The abandoned old mine to the north.
Oh, you crazy, Johnny. Nobody can find his way through that mess of caved-in and broken-down tunneling.
And if he could, them walls is weak and the timber so rotted the whole thing would come down on his ears. It can't be done, Johnny.
I figure it's got to be done. And I'm going to do it.
No, Johnny, no, you can't.
Betsy, honey, ain't no call for you to be here. Now get back to the
I
cabin.
won't let you go, Johnny. You'll die down there. You'll die.
If I don't go, there's maybe a dozen men who'll never come up again.
It ain't going to do them no good for you to be lost, too, Johnny. I won't let you go. I won't.
Betsy, listen to me. Those are my boys down there. I'm responsible for them. It's up to me to see no harm comes to them. That's my work, Betsy, and I gotta do it. I just gotta.
Of course, Johnny. You're right. Go to them, and I'll wait for you right here.
Pull them up, boys. Pull them up.
There. That makes 11. Who's left down there?
Only Stanton Green and Johnny.
Here comes Green. Give him a hand.
Quick, now. Help yourself.
Get Johnny. Quick now, that shaft's going to cave in any second. Get Johnny up here fast, before the whole thing comes down on him.
Well, Laurel Run wasn't the same after that. Not with Johnny gone and the mine ruined. Most of us was ready to leave the place. Matter of fact, Stanton Green pulled stakes for Hickory Hill, and 1 or 2 others headed for Sacramento. But somehow the rest of us just couldn't leave. Not with Betsy Baker still there, tending her cabin and mourning, quiet like. Then one day she come to see me.
The gold is still there, ain't it, Mr. Martin?
Oh, yes, it sure is, Miss Baker.
And if the
but-
mine gets operating again, there'll be work for all you boys, won't there?
Well, sure they will, but that...
Then, goodness, what's the matter with all of you?
Hmm?
Ain't you got backbone and gumption?
Well,
Now, you just get a committee together and get yourselves off to San Francisco. And don't you dare come back, Mr. Martin, till you get them mine owners to put up the capital to open that mine again.
Yes, sir. 40 growed men was ready to throw up their hands and quit. And little Betsy Baker pulled that town right up by its bootstraps. We did get the mine open again, and Laurel Run begun to thrive and grow. Well, it was maybe a couple of months later that a delegation of us went calling up to Miss Baker's cabin.
Why, I do declare, boys, this is quite a little gathering. Did you all come up here just to see me?
Yes. Oh, that's right.
That's that, ma'am. Yes, it sure is.
Goodness, I ain't going to bite none of you. Ain't nobody going to tell me what this is all about?
Well, you see, ma'am, it's like this, Miss Baker.
Yes, it's like this, Miss Baker.
Henry.
No, go on then. Tell her, Bronson.
Well, ma'am, it's this way. We've been worrying about you and how you're going to get along, and we feel we need you here in Laurel Run, so Stanley went to San Francisco and gave an argument to the general office, and, well, we get the appointment for you. There.
Now, what appointment's that, boy?
As postmistress of Laurel Run, of course.
Just a matter of fact, Miss Baker.
Of course, it's only temporary at first.
And don't pay too much.
But enough for you to get along on.
And if we get enough postal business here...
Then it'll be made permanent.
Yeah, how about it, Miss Baker? Will you take the job?
What's the matter, Miss Baker? Did we hurt your feelings or something?
No, boy. You didn't hurt my... Thank you, boy. I'll be both proud and happy to be postmistress of Laurel Run.
We will return to romance and our story, Postmistress of Laurel Run, in just a moment. Hear an 80-mile-an-hour chase and a gun battle between the police and hold-up artists tonight on CBS Radio's Night Watch. It's an actual recording of the actual event. You'll be with the police from the first alert to the exciting wind-up. That's Night Watch, tonight on most of these stations. And now for the second act of Postmistress of Laurel Run as we return to romance.
We all turned to and built a special post office building and all, and everything was fine. Only we had to make sure her temporary job was going to be permanent. And we figured that if the post office did a good, thriving business, that'd turn the trick.
Good morning, Miss Baker. Lovely day, ain't it? Well, now, let me see. I'll take $10 worth of them 5-cent stamps.
Howdy, Miss Baker. Got a few letters going out. You better give me some of them fancy 50-centers, maybe 40 or 45 of them. Yep, business was flourishing all right, but for some reason or other, that permanent appointment didn't come through.
Would you mind my asking you for a piece of advice, Mr. Martin?
Why, I'd be real delighted, Miss Baker. What's troubling you?
Well, it's these official letters from the General Post Office in San Francisco. They just keep on writing to me all the time.
Writing to you? About what?
All them new rules and notifications and absurd questions and such to make my head ache.
Well, now, that ain't no way for the government to do.
I have been referring the letters to the postmaster at Hickory Hill for advice.
Oh, you have?
Yes, he's a sort of admirer of mine.
Well, what you been saying about him?
Usually something like hogwash, let it slide.
Oh, I reckon he ought to know.
Maybe you could read it for me, Mr. Martin, and tell me what you think.
Well, now, let's see here. Postmistress, Laurel Run, refer to our unanswered communication of the previous week. Compelled to remind you of Rule 47. Rule 47? What's that, Miss Baker?
Goodness, how should I know?
Certain valuable money letters miscarried on your route. We have given you previous warning and information. Well, Miss Baker, it seems like they're asking after some valuable money letters that's disappeared hereby.
Missing money letters? Mm-hmm. Are they insinuating that I had anything to do with those letters disappearing?
Oh, well, now, Miss Baker, I'm sure the government ain't...
They have the nerve to... Oh, goodness, Mr. Martin. Whatever in the world will I do?
Well, now, here, just you don't worry, Miss Baker. Me and the boys will handle this if we got to go to Washington and see the president.
Well, if you do see him, Mr. Martin, just tell him for me he'd better run his post office a good deal better than he does. Goodness. If he can't do better than that, he ought to go into some other line of business.
This here was mighty serious business. Money letters missing from the government mail. And it could be that was the reason the permanent appointment hadn't come through. So When the stranger rode into town next day and went right to the post office.
Good evening, Miss Baker. I'm Harry Holmes of San Francisco.
Good evening, Mr. Holmes. What can I do for you?
Well, apparently my note of advice number 201 miscarried, and you didn't recognize my name. I'm Harry Holmes, the department agent from the general office in San Francisco.
Department agent for... Oh, that one. Oh.
Yes, that one, Mrs. Baker.
Well, I can assure you, Mr. Holmes, my register and waybills is in perfect order.
Now, actually, my business down here doesn't concern you at all, Miss Baker, except in a minor way. Do you happen to have my communications to you handy?
Your goodness. I sent them over to the postmaster at Hickory Hill.
You what?
Well, I couldn't for the life of me make any sense out of them, Mr. Holmes, so I just asked him what I should do.
Well, what did he say?
Well, nothing. He didn't return them, but I don't see why...
Mrs. Baker, he's the man we suspect of embezzling the money letters.
Oh, no.
Yes, we traced the disappearance of the letters to a point between Hickory Hill and Laurel Run. That's why I'm here. To prove the Hickory Hill postmaster is the guilty one.
But how can you do that here, Mr. Holmes?
We mailed a decoy letter from Cripple Creek. Hickory Hill's the only station between there and here. If the letter's not in the omnibus way bag when it arrives here, we'll know it was removed at Hickory Hill.
Oh, goodness. Such excitement. Decoy letters and robbery. It makes me feel kind of faint.
Well, there's actually no need for you to be here, Mrs. Baker. You can go home if you wish. I'll handle everything.
Oh, now that's mighty kind of you, Mr. Holmes. I do think I'd better retire. I'm afraid there are times when a woman like me just ain't up to things in a man's world.
Well, maybe Betsy Baker wasn't up to things in a man's world, but she was sure up to something. Because she didn't go to her cabin. She went to my stable, saddled up my Mustang Blue Lightning, and rode him away like she was possessed. She got to Hickory Hill a few minutes before 8:30. Snuck into the post office by a rear door.
Well, Betsy Baker. Now, I never expected an angel from heaven to drop in on me here.
Never mind the pretty speeches, Stanton Green. Just tell me one thing quick. Where's the money letter that come in that mail bag?
What, Betsy, what do you mean? I don't know of any money letter.
We ain't got time to play games, Stanton Green. That letter is a decoy. Checked through at Cripple Creek.
A decoy? Oh, no, you're joshing me, Betsy. You couldn't mean... No, you ain't. That is a decoy, ain't it?
I told you it was, didn't I? And Mr. Holmes of San Francisco is waiting at my desk right now to learn if you've taken it. Now, where is it?
Well, it's right here, Betsy.
But the seal is broken. You already opened it.
Well, I owed some bills, so I took something from the packet and I gave it to the collector. But I was going to make it up by the next mail, Betsy. I swear I was.
How much did you take?
Oh, it was only a trifle.
How much?
$100.
$100? Oh, my goodness. Oh, well, I figured on something like that. Lucky I brought my purse along.
Oh, no, Betsy. No, not your money. I just couldn't,
Set
Betsy.
up and
There's
count.
no...
There. Now, let's have that packet.
Here.
So, now toss the packet in the way bag.
But the seal is broken. I'll get some wax and fix
You
it. So
can't duplicate their seal. And if the money's found in the bag, the packet could have broke accidentally. Now, dump it in. Well, now the express man can pick it up and carry it on to Laurel Run, and Mr. Holmes won't find anything out of the way.
Oh, Betsy. Betsy, darling. I just don't know how to thank you.
Was I asking for thanks, Stanton Green?
Well, of course you weren't. But then, a woman in love never does.
A woman in love?
I've known all along, Betsy. That my love for you wasn't no stronger than your love for me.
My love for you? Stanton Green, you're loony.
Am I? Well, then why did you race here and give me that money? Involve yourself in this thing if you didn't love me.
I'll tell you, you simpleton. I did all that for only one person. John Baker.
John Baker?
Yes, John Baker. Because I'm John Baker's wife, and I'm doing my best to carry on his work for him. And you're one of his boys, his best friend. And if John Baker could give up his life to save you, I guess maybe I can risk a little trouble and disgrace. Now, do you understand?
Yeah. Yes, Miss Baker, I understand.
Well, then, take my purse. Pay back the rest of the money you stole from the government. Send in your resignation. And if there's anything left, use it to start yourself in an honest life somewhere else.
Are you going now, Miss Baker?
Yes, I'm going. I have to race the expressman back to Laurel Run. Goodbye, Stanton.
The expressman got to Laurel Run at 9:31. Mr. Home had the omnibus weigh bag in the post office at 9:32.5.
Why, I declare, Mr. Home. Well, the money's all there.
Yes, yes, it is, Miss Baker. Stanton Green's safe this time. And I'm just as glad.
You are?
Yes, I understand the man was a close friend of your husband, a man who's more fool than knave. Perhaps this means he's learned his lesson and make restitution.
Goodness, I hope so, Mr. Holmes.
Well, that finishes my work here. I'll be leaving now.
I'm terribly sorry you had this long trip for nothing.
Well, it wasn't quite that bad, Mrs. Baker. I was also commissioned to report on your qualifications as a permanent postmistress.
Oh, you were?
Yes. That permanent appointment should be out here in a matter of days now.
Well, really, Mr. Holmes, I do declare I don't really think I'm a fit person for the job.
Your record says you are, Mrs. Baker, and I say so, too. You'll get that appointment. Well, good night.
But, Mr. Holmes, I'm not fit. I'm really not. You don't understand.
I think I do. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Baker, you might be interested in learning something. When the postal department puts money in a decoy letter, we always use marked coins.
Always use marked?
Yes. But then that's a bit of information I don't think you'll need as permanent postmistress of Laurel Run now, will you? Good night, Miss Baker.
Well, I declare.
Romance is produced and directed by Fred Mackay. Editorial supervision is by Het Mannheim. You have heard Postmistress of Laurel Run by Bret Harte, adapted for romance by Sidney Marshall. Virginia Gregg was heard as Betsy, Parley Bear as Martin, Leo Cleary as Bronson, Howard McNear as Handley, Lawrence Dobkin as Stanton, Jack Moyles as Johnny, and Robert Griffin as Holmes. This is Hugh Douglas inviting you to hear Romance, transcribed next week at this same time. Stay tuned now for Stars Over Hollywood, which follows immediately over most of these stations.
This is the CBS Radio Network.